You're 8:30.
So today we've got some really exciting news as we roll into the election. What you will see today is a little bit more information on scripts and dialogues and how to use that both for the election this week and also for the holidays. The big disclaimer that we've got to put up is you will also get a lot of facts and a lot of data and a lot of real estate knowledge in the next 27 minutes. And remember this disclaimer we make at the beginning of all of these. When you are asked, who's the market, please avoid the rookie mistake. Instead of giving them information on what the real estate market looks like, say, it's interesting. It sounds like you have a reason for asking. And what you will find in many cases is that people are making chit chat. Paige, just checking. Do you know the famous artist on the right side?
I sure do.
Do you know what band he's with?
I sure do.
He's got a few songs that might show up a little bit later today, but that's our public service announcement to start. So, more than anything, we wanted to focus on the summary of what's been going on because there's a lot of crazy headlines that are out there. Two, we're going to do a deep dive into the Houston market data on the why behind the headline summary. And number three, we have been blessed from this last weekend to have one of the best team leaders out of Arizona come by and visit us and spend time with our team. She is part of Gary Keller's mastermind, and she had two fantastic scripts that are working now that we think can help you. And then we've got one surprise at the very end of the presentation. Probably you have a few friends that are out there that are screaming about the election. One of the favorite stories that I love is that this is the best season ever for therapists. Therapists say that this is one of the times where their business has grown the most, and they have grown adults show up into their office and they weep. And that is a very fair analogy because I know a lot of people don't love either of the candidates. And I know that the election cycle, because it has fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is creating a lot of chaos. And it's creating a lot of chaos in the real estate market as we're going to go through. Specifically, when we think about the core message, right? If you're going to take nothing away from this presentation other than these messages for the buyers, the big note for your buyers is use this chaos, use this emotion, use this angst, use all this anxiety, and see if you can take advantage of getting a better deal. Brad on the call had a great example of that from one of his clients. He said his client thinks that there's going to be rioting that comes in after the election, right? No matter who wins. And so what that client chose to do is do a massive price reduction because his goal was to be able to get his house under contract and ideally sold, but at least at this point under contract before the election. So again, there is a tremendous amount of emotion that is running out there. And for most people, right, that creates a lot of fear. And again, going back to the Phil Jones line, right, you're able to use the line if there's two types of people. And so, right, a very good and easy question right now is, by the way, do you know anybody who's nervous about the election? And right, I'm sure everybody can point to one member of their family or friends or text group that is nervous about the election. And then again, the Phil Jones line is, well, there's two types of people. Those people that sit on the sidelines and wait, and those people who know how to take advantage of an opportunity. Which one are you? And that may get an opportunity for you to have a couple of your buyers off the fence to look at how to take advantage of the chaos, the emotion, the angst, everything that's negative that's been going on in the market, which of course we're going to get into in just a minute, and be able to use that as a way to get a better deal under contract than maybe they could have a couple weeks or months ago. Other thing that we're going to see and we're going to talk about is that this has one of the highest days on market any point over the last 3 years. That also gives you an opportunity to score better deals for your buyers. And one of the most interesting things, and we've heard this a lot, Brittany mentioned this yesterday, is a couple buyers are coming out and saying, oh, I think that there's a really big chance of a recession, right? I think there's a really big chance that everything's going to go to hell. The big stat that you're able to use for buyers who want to be in a home, besides, of course, just their lifestyle and their reasons for moving, is that in the spring, home prices went up after seven of the late presidential elections, after seven of the eight last presidential elections. And again, nobody knows what this next election is going to hold. Nobody knows if there's going to be chaos or not. But for buyers who want to move because that they've had a life event, as you understand their life, and they feel comfortable being in a house for years, right? This could be a very interesting chance to take advantage of the emotion that's out there, the higher days on the market to get better deals, and the fact that home prices went up in the spring after seven of the eight last presidential elections to be able to move and get something under contract.
And Bob, can I just point out of the one that it went down, that was the Great Recession, right? So when you put this into perspective, had we not had the Great Recession in 2008, then the prices wouldn't have gone down in 2009. So the answer is it doesn't matter who wins. Once it's done, historically, the data implies that the market continues to move up.
Now, again, you're in the market of how do you help people make wise decisions? And ultimately, with data or predictions, right? Nobody knows. But again, for buyers with a long-term view, this is a way to help them move on to the life that they want to lead by looking at the data that's out there from a perspective that can give them hope and direction. Now, let's look at the market for what's going on for sellers. And again, some of this is going to feel contradictory. And again, the questions that you're getting back to is why are these individual movings? What is the timing? And what are the life events that they have going on? One of the most interesting headline statistics that is out there in the news is that United States, this is broad, US sales in September were the worst September in 14 years. Again, our friend that came in from Arizona, leads a fantastic team out there, said it was her worst August and September since she's been in the business. It's a big statement. We're going to get to that on Houston in a second. Yeah, Paige, what do you want to add at this point?
And she's old like us, so she's been around the hoop for a while. She hadn't been in the business only 3 years.
One of the other data points that I have no doubt that you're feeling since our last discussion is that mortgage rates are up and mortgage applications for each of the last 4 weeks have dropped. We're going to talk about why in just a second. But right, that's putting some buyers on the sidelines besides the election. And in addition, right, prices are still up. And so again, the big thing that you're trying to help your seller decide is, again, the way that I see it, you have three options. I know, right? 20 people have come through the house. None of them have chosen to make an offer. We can leave it as and we can hope. And we can hope that the 21st person sees the value of your home and is going to bring an offer that you're comfortable with at the current price. Option number two, you could look at this as your forever home, right? Market could go up, market could go down. There could be issues for the next 5 to 7 years, and you could plan to live here forever. Or three, what we could do is that we could use the data that's come in from our marketing views. We could use the data that's come in from our open house and our showings and a lack of offers, and we could restart our marketing. And part of the restart of the marketing is we come to market with a better price that's reflective of the change in the concerns in the market conditions. Which of those three options do you feel is the smart decision for you? And that type of process and that type of data is helpful for sellers. And again, some of your sellers are going to be in the camp where they're like, no, 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 I have to be moving by the end of the month because I want to be closer to my granddaughter. It's a big move. Well, then this may not be your forever home. Some of your sellers are going to be like, this is all the equity that I have in the world and I have no choice, but I've got to stay and write it out. And then other people, like most of us, are going to have life events that are going on, and it's going to be an emotional and a feeling-based conversation, and you're going to want to use the data to help them make wise decisions. Paige, any comments that you want to add yet?
Oh, I think that's beautifully said.
And so here's something that I think is going to be helpful for everybody on this call. Again, we're going to get into the data in Houston in a second, but probably not surprising, you're going to see that the data from August and September sucked, right? Most people didn't have a great August and September. Again, the last slide that we showed with a trend line showed home prices. This slide here talks about home sales volume.
So the
One of the
number of,
data, the number of sales, right? The units, the families helped, the total number of sales. And again, this is broad data. And one of the things that should be a hopeful statistic for everybody on this call, especially those of you that are feeling that this has been a rough year or that this has been a rough quarter, is that after 9 of the last 11 presidential elections, the number of home sales for each went up. And ultimately, you look at why and you say, right, what's going on? Well, it's because we, generally speaking, removed fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right? Most humans are very resilient. They may not like the choice of who's in the president's or in the White House or in Congress or in the Texas Senate, but most people, when they're presented with bad news, they're able to accept it and then they're able to move on. And once people have certainty, then that gets them back to their normal course of business. And fundamentally, it gets out of the news cycle. And that's the reason that most of you on this call should feel optimistic about the business that's coming your way, because the volume sales numbers should be up. Again, as you can see, usually takes a couple months to shake out, but it should be a better spring. Paige, anything else?
no, love it.
Okay. So the next part of the data is always the nerdy part of the data. This is the stuff that I absolutely love. And you can see my wife, who is a math major, sometimes like, come on, Bob, just a little faster, a little faster.
I'm not a math major. I'm an English major. I'm going to tell you where to put the comma.
The reason that you should at least have a fundamental and basic understanding of the data is because knowing the market data, even if you take away nothing but 2 to 3 headline messages and you have a page that you can show to your buyers and sellers, is because knowing the market data gives you an edge. And fundamentally, that edge not only helps you help your client make wise decisions, but more importantly than anything else is when you're on that phone call, when you're on the Zoom, when you're in there in the client meeting, and the client asks you a question that maybe you don't know the answer to, you're able to go back to the fundamentals and the fundamentals of the market data. And that's the reason that we would suggest is take a couple minutes to get comfortable with these pages. Take a couple minutes to get comfortable for how you talk through these market pages, because this is the part that's going to give you the confidence, it's going to give you the poise, and it's going to allow you to earn the money that you want to make. And so the background information on what's been going on, as we've talked about for a while, the good news is that inflation is slowing. And so you see we are at the lowest rate of inflationary numbers that we've had in multiple years, basically since before the COVID times and the stimulus. The reason that message is so important is because that's what the Federal Reserve has been looking at to decide what they want to set the federal funds rate, or basically the cost of money to banks. The cost of money to banks is cheap, then the cost of money to consumers buying homes can be cheap. And so the reason that we had a rate cut last month is because the rate of inflation slowed. So then, Bob, why are mortgage rates up? Well, if inflation is slowing and mortgage rates are up, as you can see, right? Mortgage rates are up to about where they were in July. They're still down about a percentage point from a year ago. So, right, we're moving in the right direction. But they're not like the low that we were at when we were talking last time of about 6.08. And so, again, for the last 4 weeks, mortgage applications have slowed down. And so fundamentally, you say is right, why are these rates up and what's going to happen? Well, part, it's volatile because of the election, right? We're hearing a lot of weird stuff coming out from candidates on both sides, and you don't really know what's coming. And so anytime that there's volatility and anytime there's uncertainty, the markets make that a little more expensive. Okay. Two, we're waiting for today for a very big jobs report. Now, again, the big thing that the Fed looks for, that they're looking for in a Goldilocks scenario is inflation coming down, jobs being pretty good, pretty steady, not crazy, but not too bad, pretty steady. And then also that the economy is growing. Last week, the data came out that the economy is growing at our Goldilocks scenario, right? About 2.8%. Feels great. And so today is a big day. And so the markets are likely going to move somewhere based upon the data that's coming out in a few hours. And three, the Fed, filled with lots of smart people, obviously, they get things wrong sometimes, but they say, we have no idea who's going to be in the White House. We have no idea if those politicians are telling lies or if they're telling the truth. We don't know what's coming with the market. And so what we're going to do is we're going to wait. And because of all that uncertainty, the people who are selling money say, I'm going to make that money a little bit more expensive. But historically, that money, that cost of money and the uncertainty has come down after the election. And so the nice thing that you have right now to your buyers, this is again a recommended dialogue, is right. Rates are down 1% from last year. Rates are up a little bit from last month. I got it. Don't you wish you had locked in rates then? Obviously, we can't go back in time, but what we'd suggest is one, get ready to move really fast. With the stuff going on for the election, you're going to get a lot of volatility. So be ready to move fast. Two, if you're looking to lock in these rates now, don't be afraid to refi, right? We think rates will be down. Experts think rates will be down. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. If they go down, you can refi and you can benefit. And three, potentially your best line is, okay, cost of money's up a little bit from last month. Again, it's down from last year, but it's up a little bit. At what price would you feel comfortable making an offer on this home, right? At what price would you feel comfortable making an offer on this home? Because the advantage that you get from that, given all the uncertainty and all the emotion going on, maybe that seller is desperate to sell and move to Canada. Maybe that seller is in an emotional state and just wants to be done. I don't know. We won't know until we make an offer. So if the cost of money's up a little bit, at what price would you like that home? Paige, anything you'd add yet?
No, the one thing I would just remind you, Karen mentioned that she saw the initial job reports come out and it wasn't good. The government would like us to have a, a higher percentage of unemployed folks. I know that seems counterintuitive to all of us because you're like, why would you want unemployed people? But when they are balancing how they think that our market should look, there is a number for GDP, for economic growth that they want to see a target of. There's a number of folks that they want to see unemployment to be. And right now we have too many people employed. So they would like to see more people not employed. And then they're looking for that inflation number. So there's the balance of those three that then lead to what we see in interest rates. And they're trying to get that measured. When those all align when in the range they want them, they leave the rates where they are.
Which is exactly where we are right now. All the data I'm about to go through, it comes right off our trends page. The data is updated live every day. And so highly recommend in this uncertain time that you bring certainty. Biggest thing that you're going to see from the headline message is that there is more inventory and we are closer to a balanced market. Balanced market, again, is 4 to 6 months of inventory than at any point over the last 5 years. It's a long time that we've had more inventory. So you see prices basically over the course of the year haven't changed. And in addition, sales numbers up 2%, basically flat. Pending sales, we're going to go through that in a second, are up, and also price reductions are up. Part of that is volatility due to seasonality over what we've seen before. This is your money side, or for many of you, it is the reason that the August and September money in your bank account may be lower than what you'd like, right? If it feels hard, it is. One of the things that you're going to see as you look at that is the August is the worst August that we've had at any point in the last 5 years. September was about the same as where we were last year, which is way down at any point than the COVID years. And October was dramatically the worst October that we have had in 5 years. So for those of you that have been in the business basically since COVID and you're like, hey, this is a down year, it feels harder, I'm worried about the future. Well, there's a reason that you're feeling that way right now. The good news on this is something that we had forecasted and talked about back in January, because this is what happens before presidential election cycles. And given a lot of the changes that are going on both in the market from NAR and other and noise and everything else, that's the reason that a lot of buyers have been paused. August, of course, we had a lot of storms in Houston. And so if you are feeling that it has been slow and hard, you are 100% justified. And again, that's why we go back to this data we showed you before, that we think that's going to turn around about a month after the election cycle. One of the other things, again, I'm going to go through this just very quickly, is the prices. Prices are still really, really high. They're basically the highest that we've had for the fall. So again, your activity for the sellers your sellers have built up a tremendous, tremendous amount of equity. Maybe they didn't get what their neighbor got a couple months ago, but the recommendation is price a little bit below the market, get out ahead of it, unless you really want to stay with it. For buyers, same thing. You've got an opportunity to get a deal. Days on market trends are really interesting to watch over the last couple of weeks. Days on market actually over the last week has gone down. We don't know exactly why, and we want to see if that's a blip due to the election or if it is something that is related to other data or mortgage applications or anything else. But you'll still see the main message is days on market are higher than they've been at any point in the last 2 years. Pending sales, one of the best slides that I actually have to give you for data. Pending sales over the last week are up with a big bounce. Again, we think that this is because some of the changes in seasonality and some of the changes on people wanting to move before the election, which is why we say strike while the irons are hot for buyers to see if you can take advantage of good deals. We are seeing sellers incredibly fearful. Some people, some buyers will be able to make money on that opportunity. Price reductions, we've basically stabilized to where we've been over the last couple years, which again is an interesting trend line. And now we're getting into a couple other recommended dialogues to use on how you're able to get your buyers and sellers off the fence. Courtney, would you be so kind as to give us the first one that we heard from our friend in Arizona?
Absolutely, Bob. Would you be so kind as to be the buyer who's not sure if you want to meet with me?
I would love to be the buyer that is unsure if I want to meet with you or not, because it is much more fun for me just to go look at homes rather than do any kind of planning or sit down sessions or strategy.
Bob, and I completely understand. I have a question and kind of to put this into context that might be a little more recognizable. Have you ever painted a room before?
I have.
Okay, good. And what was the hardest part of painting that room?
Oh, it's basically the trim and all the setup.
Yeah, the prep work, right?
Yes.
Getting all that tape down so that everything is really easy once you get it started. And when you prepped well, what happens or what was the outcome with the paint job?
When we prepped well, the outcome was better. It was better.
And when you didn't prep well, like maybe the first time you did it, how did that go?
My wife and I fought a lot, and she blamed me, and it was a disaster.
Right? And so it sounds like taking that extra time to do quality prep made it a much better and easier process for you. Is that right?
That's very fair. That's exactly what happened.
And Bob, it's very similar when you're going to buy a home. Sitting down and meeting for about maybe just 30 minutes, talking about what you're looking for, why you're looking to buy a home, what's important to you in the house. That's the kind of prep work that we believe in and that our clients have found has had their process be so much smoother and sometimes even faster because they knew what they were looking for, they knew why they were doing it, and as their trusted advisor, we also knew the same.
Fantastic.
Would you be opposed to meeting for 30 minutes before we go out to meet homes so you can have a better process?
I would not be opposed to that. Paige, do you want to opt in on why that metaphor works for a lot of people?
Well, it who hasn't painted a room, right? Who on this call has not gone through that misery of thinking it's going to be really easy, and then you get into it and you're like, holy crap, this is harder than I thought. And so it's one of those life metaphors that because most people have done it, they can identify with that example. And then when you're able to then mirror that into a process of, hey, guess what? Home buying or home selling is a whole lot more complicated than just painting a room. Don't you owe it to yourself to get the process right so you can avoid some costly mistakes? It just is a very natural way of explaining it in a way that's not condescending. It's something that everyone can understand.
It's also very helpful if you've ever had a seller that just says, tell me the price at which I should sell. No, 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 we don't need to meet for a strategy session. Just give me the price. How much commission will you charge and what price can I list it at? Right. Also a very effective metaphor to give for that scenario. Courtney, thank you so much for doing that. One of the things we're going to go to for Brittany next, what you will see on the left side is I know that is hard for some of you to see. That is the one-page disc overview. On the disc profile, as hopefully everybody knows, your high D dominance, I influence, I think golden retriever, and your C and your S very steady for compliance. That one pager sheet has what they love and ultimately what they fear. Key recommendation is to be able to update your conversation tone and your word choices to match that. If you'd like a copy of that and you don't have it, shoot an email to Paige. Brittany, specifically as it comes to around the election and as it comes to the holidays, how would you use this data to get price reductions from your sellers most
Yeah.
effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give a little bit more context, Colleen gave us some great tips last week on how to use this DISC profile to get a price reduction before the elections or the holidays, as Bob stated. And one of the most important factors to us, to understanding our clients and how to address conversations with them, is to understand their DISC profile. And if you're not familiar with this, this is a personality assessment and it's broken down into 4 different categories. So once you're able to figure out which profile they are, your conversations become a lot easier with them. So I had spoken to Colleen about my client, and my client is a very high SC. So she recommended that the conversation include 3 things: sensitivity, a sense of protection, and talking about feelings. So let's say that you're on your weekly call with your seller, you're giving them an update on the market, the recent activity, feedback from showings, etc. Then you get into the conversation about the price reduction. You dig into why they aren't quite ready, and it's typically, well, we don't want to, move during the holidays. We're just so busy during the holidays. We don't want to be inconvenienced, etc. And so you agree with them, that sounds extremely valid. I completely understand that the holidays can be stressful to keep your home open for showings, etc. But the biggest nugget that I took away from Colleen is she stated, this is what you say to your clients, to your sellers. Here's what my concerns about us waiting are. I've talked to my team, and we're hearing that a lot of sellers are also wanting to wait to do a price reduction until after the election or the holidays. And that's going to be more competition by the time that we reduce, because all of the other sellers will also be doing one as well. So we may miss an opportunity where there's less competition. And I feel that the safest move for us is to reduce the price now and get ahead of the market. How do you feel about that? And so that was the biggest takeaway, is using that word safe. I feel that the safest move for us is to blank, blank, blank. And so that was a great takeaway. And I was able to get the price reduction with my client by using that word.
And Brittany, I will also add, right, that's actually valid and true, right? You didn't convince them to do something that was not in their best interest.
No,
You help them make a wise decision to beat the market, right? And that's what our job is, to help guide our clients to do what is in their right and best interest. And so that language just helped you get there.
Right. And the price reduction is really inevitable, Colleen said. There's not going to be any major swings in the market, even after the election, even after the holidays. There's not going to be really any major swings. It's going to take about 6 months to a year to really feel that potentially. So really, my client is looking to buy. She's looking to sell and then buy. So the longer that we put off that price reduction, the longer it's going to take her to be in that next chapter and be in that home that she's wanting to be in, right? So.
And Brittany, in the essence of time, I know you wanted to go through the same verbiage to use for the D's and the I's, but I think we're going to run out of time. But for anyone that's curious on that, we'll just include that in an email. But the SC, that was perfect. And congratulations on getting the price reduction.
Thank you.
That's
Paige?
awesome. Okay, so guys, it is business planning season. You're like, what? It's November. What are you talking about? This is the time when you want to start setting your goals for next year, right? The worst time to do that is in January. So we're doing it now. For those of you on our team, we've got our one-on-one scheduled. We'll be going through that with you. For those of you in the associate program, your squad leaders will be leading you through this. If you are not a part of the Houston Properties family, but would like to go through a business planning session, you can email us with these 4 things, and we can work to set a time to go through a 25-minute business planning session with you to get you started off right for next year. We are at 9 o'clock on the nose.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Paige. Thank you all for joining us today. If you've got any other questions, please email us. Tell us what you like best. Tell us what you'd like to see next time, and we will see you next month.
And public service announcement, last day to early vote is today. Go do your civic duty.
Thank you.